There is a fifth dimension.
A dimension of sound.
Damn it, Frank! We tell him to be quiet. I spilled my hot cup of Uranus again.
A dimension of sight.
Hey, Arch. I'm gonna sock you in the puss.
A dimension of mind.
Nan Adams, is that you?
Next stop, the Twilight Zone.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Fifth Dimension of Twilight Zone podcast. I am your non-waving host, Nick. We are here to, of course, talk about the Twilight Zone, Rod Serling's favorite podcast, favorite show, favorite creation, favorite, smooth cigarette, Eddie Valiant.
Soft cigarette, not soft cigarette. Yeah.
I was doing a Betty Boop, Who Framed Roger Rabbit joke that no one got. Exactly. So yeah,
Hi,
so this is going well.
Hi, Eddie.
She sounded just like him or her.
I'm very good at that. Hi, Eddie.
But are you all about the shave and a haircut though?
Shave and a haircut.
I didn't realize, the great thing about that movie is I never knew that was an actual bit from the 40s. I didn't realize
totally
that was a thing.
Shaving a haircut.
No, yeah.
Yeah, which makes that movie more awesome because it actually uses like real references and jokes from that era. Which
they do a really good job with that.
I watched that not long ago with my youngest daughter, and happy to report she was scared shitless at the end of Dr. J.
Good.
Because that scared the shit out of me when I was a kid.
Yeah, I was gonna say when I watched it with Triv doing the video for your theater thing, I was scared shitless too watching that scene. That scene's fucking creepy as fuck, man.
Yeah,
and I
he's like,
you remember me?
You remember me?
I
killed your brother.
Yeah, I
gotta tell you, as an animated character, the dip scares the shit out of me.
Oh, I know what to send you for Christmas, Triv.
Oh, super.
It's dip.
That poor shoe. Have you ever felt more sorry for a shoe in your life?
Oh, I cry to this day for that poor shoe.
Yeah. Very big shoe. Very big shoe. So how the hell are you guys? How's life? How's the Twilight Zone?
We're good.
All I'm gonna say is that there's a reason my past 2 and following 2 solo reviews have the word bloody in the title.
Yeah, because you're a bloody nightmare to work with, Triv.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And that's how we'll leave it. So anyways, yeah.
Not done on purpose at all.
No, not at all. But yeah, we're on audio feeds, Anchor, Audio Boom, iTunes, Google Play, all that good stuff. Please rate, subscribe, all that stuff. Just kind of helps us along, helps us gain subscribers. Maybe one day I'll do a Patreon page when we're finally finished with this, so you can give us free money, that type of thing. So
free money.
Yeah, free money. We want money. We want money. So anyways, we definitely don't want to die. I can tell you that much. We just want money. So anyways,
no death.
No Mr. Death. No, was it Monty Python? This is not a Monty Python sketch, people.
I'm not.
This is super serial. Yes,
I'll
you
go
are.
for
Shut
a
up.
walk. I'm feeling better.
Isn't the meaning of life where death visits the group at the house?
Yeah.
And they're all drunk or something like that, so it becomes like this big parody of
The
death
dinner
trying to
party?
take them all. Yeah.
Actually, I think it's
love
at a club where they go, because they do like a conga line into the afterlife, don't they?
It's a house. It's like a party at a house.
It's like a dinner party at a house.
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
They go to a restaurant.
Oh, it's funny.
Where the fat guy explodes.
Yeah. Well, no, there's another restaurant though too at some point. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
With the fish.
It's
They're
funny.
Like, "Hey."
No, not the fish.
They look like
But that's also
the demons from Freddy's Dead. Or actually, I guess the demons from Freddy's Dead look like the fish from Monty Python.
That's pretty good. Then there's that weird interlude where like everything is super weird and like Graham Chapman is walking around with like tights and he's all like weird arms and stuff.
Yeah, that they're like
This
at school
fishy,
learning about sex.
fishy fish.
No, completely different.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Nice segue, Jacob. Nice segue. Anyways, so
on
we're
purpose.
here to So we're here to talk a new Twilight Zone episode. This episode is quite something. I
episode.
have a lot of feelings. What's that?
Said it's an episode.
Yeah, I have a lot of feelings about this episode that might hit me pretty hard. I don't know. This episode is very much what a lot of people feel going through life. At some point, they've had this existential crisis of not wanting to die. I'm pretty sure we've all felt this at some point in our life. It's
I'm
also an
straight up.
episode that may
I'm
you
emo.
don't know your emo. Yeah, he's like,
Yeah.
I accept it. Yeah, you're that group of individuals that was like underneath the bridge doing that weird dance, wearing all the
Techno
gothy.
rave, the emo
Yeah,
rave.
techno rave. Yeah,
Yeah, that's me.
right. Anyways, so yeah, this is one episode that Trivs, I know you said you liked, but we'll talk about it in just a second. That, of course, episode is season 3, episode 16, Nothing in the Dark, directed by Lamont Johnson, written by George Clayton Johnson, production code 3652, air date January 5th, 1962. The first episode of the new year, that was 1962. This stars Gladys Cooper, R.G. Armstrong, and the well-known, well-respected, very young-sounding Robert Redford. This is an episode,
Pitt.
once again. What's that?
Brad Pitt.
Yeah, exactly.
Brad Pitt, yes, Brad Pitt. This episode is like, at first I'm like, when is Robert Redford going to come into the mix? I'm like, oh yeah, because this is 1962, so he's like 25 years old in this episode.
I
It's
didn't
kind of
know
like
one of
Leonard
those-
Nimoy last episode.
Yeah, I forgot he was in it until halfway through, and then I like caught a glimpse of him, and I was like, "Oh, this is the one." Oh yeah, Robert. They said Robert Redford's in this one. Sure enough, as soon as I saw it, I couldn't
Yeah.
unsee it.
Yep.
You know it from the hair and from the smile. Robert
He's all
Redford has
Butch
that smile.
Cassidy and the Sundance Kid looking motherfucker.
Yeah, his voice is actually very like his balls haven't dropped for Robert Redford type of voice. It's kind of crazy.
His old saggy
but-
balls and dropped yet.
right. But this once again, this is an episode about existential crises. But Triv, you were talking about this episode last week when we did Quality of Mercy, and you were mentioning how much you liked this episode. And Jacob, I'm probably with you on this boat. I don't remember this episode very well, but at all really. So I knew where it was going when I first started watching it, kind of. But Triv, you said, would you put this in your top 10, or is this just an episode you really like?
I'd probably put it not necessarily top 10, but probably top 20. And I might have actually mentioned top 10 last week, but having rewatched it, it's an excellent episode, but I think it maybe hits a little too close to home for me because my parents are older and they're kind of in that space. So it's like, it's a hard thing for me to face because of like the emotional stuff. But no, for me, this episode still hits, like it hits hard, and it's like One for the Angels for me. Like it kind of hits me where I live.
Well, that's the thing about this episode. And I don't know, Jacob, if you agree or, with this as well. I think this is an episode that hits us all in a sense of like our parents are getting to that age where, they're starting to grow older or have gone to a very old age. And, you start to worry that they're not going to be around anymore. And it's just, it's the idea of like being afraid of dying and stuff like that. It's a really interesting thing, but it's also a scary proposition to know that, whatever you believe in is what comes at the end. And I don't know how to approach this episode in a lighthearted manner, because it's a very dark episode, a very disturbing.
See, I don't know.
Not really disturbing.
I don't see it as dark. I mean, there are dark elements to it.
There's nothing in the dark,
but it's
Triv.
not right. But it's not a scary episode.
I don't think it's dark as in a depressing way. I think
No,
it deals with
no.
some heavy themes.
right.
Yeah.
But it deals with them in a way that's not like morbid. I wouldn't say this is morbid, but there
But it
is
also
a lot of like regret, like, just from her perspective, like the way she sees herself and the way that she locked herself away. And we'll get into it obviously, but there's so many themes in this that I see in my parents at the age they're at, like that, they even say, don't get old, that's kind of when you have a discussion with them, that comes up more often than not. And I see the correlation between them and our main character here. So
Yeah, I think it has some. I would go as far as to say it has some dark moments or not even. She's in a dark place, but I think overall the episode is not. I don't think it's dark. I think actually it's hopeful.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I mean, yeah, I get that. I meant like dark in the sense of like, how do you, as somebody who is approaching the end of your life and being as scared as her, it feels like it, is dark in the nature of like, she eventually is going to have to die. You have to think about that. And it can take you, as this woman admits to, it takes you to dark places. But I'm looking at the Wikipedia page because I'm sure Triv, you found some maybe trivia on this, but in the reception of it, this episode on IMDb is listed as number 7 in the 156 ranking episodes of Twilight Zone.
Really?
And yeah, Robert Redford stated that he had been told by a production company of the series that that it is the most often viewed episode of the Twilight Zone. Now, that's an interesting. I don't know if Robert Redford is like going off memory or if this is true.
And as of when?
But well, this was
in 2014.
2000. Yeah, but the question remains. It's something I'd be interested to look into, which I didn't know until like I said, was looking at the Wikipedia page. That would be interesting if all these episodes that had come out for the Twilight Zone, an episode that starred Robert Redford and Gladys Cooper, because Gladys Cooper was a famous silent movie star, a famous star of the 40s and 50s. If this episode was really that, if it was more popular than Eye of the Beholder, if it was more popular than Nick of Time, if it was more popular, not Nick of Time, Time Enough at Last. Yeah, to serve man. Like I'd be interested to see if that's really true or not. And I don't know. What do you guys think about that? If that's true?
I mean, I wonder if that was said to him in 2014, or if like he's like, oh yeah, I remember back in 1972, they told me that this was the most viewed episode. Like, when was he told this? Because nothing against the episode. We'll talk about the episode, but I mean, when you think Twilight Zone and people talk about it, I don't ever hear anybody talk about this episode. I'm not saying people don't, but you hear the ones you mentioned a moment ago. Those are I'm surprised that this would be the most viewed if it actually is or still is. Maybe at some point I'd be like, okay, maybe it just got syndicated more or something like that. But like in 2023, that seems odd to me, but whatever.
See, I think I could see this one being, because I think this one showed up a lot in the marathons. Like, don't quote me, but I mean, the reason I remember it is because it came up consistently throughout the marathons. But I don't think that makes it like, I mean,
all those other ones would too, would they?
No, 100%. I mean, whether you're talking, Monsters on Maple Street or the one that's like where everybody turns out like they're toys for aliens, or any of the big ones, Time Enough at Last, any of those, the ones that are really well known. Not to say that this one isn't like known, but I don't think it's in the same, like, at least like pop culture sphere as some of those other ones. It's just not.
Well, no, I don't think it is either. But I don't. Apparently, you guys didn't like this episode as much as I did, or maybe
no. I really enjoyed it.
Maybe I'm misreading that. I think this, honestly, and this is just me, I think this is a top 10 episode because I think it's an episode that really gets down into the nuts and bolts of humanity and human emotion and human like fears, because a lot of those episodes that we've watched in the past couple years now have been interesting and have dealt with that, but episode is the most realistic approach to how I've viewed my life, in the sense of being scared of every little thing when it comes to whether it be a money situation, whether it be my look at life as turning 40. You started getting into that existential crisis slash what's that word called when guys start getting to middle age? Is middle age crisis? Midlife crisis. And like I've always had that fear. I can remember this going back to my 20s of what happens when you die. And I know you sometimes at some point you just have to accept it because everybody's going to get to there too eventually. But it's just a really interesting episode that kind of hits me in a personal way. So therefore it hits me more of an episode that I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was, even though I know, Triv, we talked about One for the Angels, and I really like that episode too. But I think there are certain episodes of the Twilight Zone, and it shows here that that hit me harder and hit me more in the thinking man's realm than a lot of episodes do. And it's starting to kind of put my perspective of the Twilight Zone into a different realm, because I guess a lot of, I know this may sound like I'm kind of jumbling everything I'm saying, but this episode, like a lot of episodes that kind of wasn't thinking about, are hitting me harder and making me think about how much more important and potent the Twilight Zone has become ever since we started this channel. And this is one of those episodes because, it can come off silly, the idea of like this woman who's being evicted, which is another thing you kind of fear in life, of being evicted if you don't pay your bills, and that worry and stuff like that, or you're being like foreclosed on, or you're being sent out to the cold to move on because they're going to raise the property. And also getting older, being afraid of like, people aren't going to remember you, or you're not going to be able to see the sun, and how that affects you and stuff like that. And I don't know. It hit me harder than I thought it was going to, that any Twilight Zone has at this point, in a lot of interesting ways that I wasn't expecting the Twilight Zone to do. And I don't know if this is a fear of Rod Serling. I don't know if he like feared a lot of this stuff and this is why he put it in there. Or I'm sorry, maybe George Clayton Johnson, but I don't know what they felt. But it was, I don't know. I'm rambling on. So what do you guys think?
Okay. Well, I can tell you that George Clayton Johnson was in his late 20s when he wrote this. But he did this, and then he did Kick the Can as well. So he dealt with a lot of older life things as a young man. Now whether that means he's like an old soul, or whether that means he just knew how to write that stuff well, it's kind of say it how you will. But I mean, I think you make good points. I don't know that this is a specific. I mean, I think this is kind of an every person thing. Even those that, you could have the person that is the most assured, whether it be through faith or just personal, they just know. But even folks like that, that we don't know what comes after. And there is that fear of the unknown.
Well, that's what here's one thing I'm going to say. I'm sorry if I've cut you off, Jacob, or anything. Like I knew probably want to interject, but this is going to sound really stupid and silly, but I was telling you guys the other night that I was heading to work, and I saw this like really bad accident, and the one of the car, the people in the car, or two people in the car that got totaled really badly didn't make it. And it just, the idea of like somebody passing away, somebody dying, how quickly it can happen, and how you kind of have to look at every day as the last day, and whether that affects you or whether that puts you into this kind of like bubble where you're afraid to move out into the world because you're afraid you're going to die at that moment or whatever. It just kind of puts a lot of stuff in perspective. As stupid as an accident like that is, it's when you see it and when you realize anything could happen, but you can't put yourself in that predicament where you're like this old woman where you don't experience things because you're so afraid of individual who is like, this is going to sound really funny, but like the movie It Follows, where it could be anybody. You just kind of have to live the life. If you don't live the life, then you're going to find yourself in, a van down by the river or something. So
you're so afraid of death that you don't live life.
Well, God, look at, and forgive a tangent, but look at COVID. I to this day know people that like, they don't leave their house unless it's to, go do grocery curbside pickup. I mean, they don't interact with their kids. Like, I know one person who, like, to this day, she will not hug her child, and he's grown. Like, they stand across from each other wearing masks outside, and I it's one of those things where you have to be comfortable with yourself, but it is still one of those things where she has literally not, by and large, left her house other than to do like the basic stuff in her car, or been in a well-ventilated place since COVID started. I don't know. It's one of those things where you have to take people where they are. But there's also that, do you understand how much life you're missing out on because of this?
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you don't live your life, and for instance, like, if I don't travel overseas at some point in my life and I get to be 80 years old or 90 years old, and I end up regretting stuff. And that's what she talks about in this episode, which is very much that you got to literally live your life, because you're going to find yourself 90 years old in a basement down by the river or something like that. So
better than a van down by the river.
this episode once again is about an old woman named Wanda. Not Wanda Maximoff, but Wanda Dunn.
Wanda Dunn.
Yeah. She is a woman who lives in a basement, and we have no idea why she lives in this basement, but it looks like a very disheveled looking place. And in the process, there is a police shootout that happens that wakes her up, and she will not, of course, answer the door because of reasons that is not fully explained. And I got to ask you guys this question, like going in, if you didn't know anything about this episode, would you expect it to be about a woman afraid of dying and to be afraid of Mr. Death, as it's called?
I would have taken this as just because you get older and there's you don't necessarily know the world as well as you did when you were in your 20s or 30s. And I first time I saw this, I took it as a person that was just like, it was easier to stay at home. There was things outside that scared her, like just general things, whether it be gangs or crime or, whatever. So I don't think she had that tattoo.
No, she probably should have. Yeah.
Maybe that's why she didn't go outside, was because of that tattoo.
Absolutely.
But anyways, so
oh my god. Oh god.
That's what Jacob's been doing for like the last half hour. I'm trying to find this picture. No regrets.
That's 2 minutes.
But anyways, so imagine, if you will, you're an old person, you're afraid of everything. There's a shootout out, ironically, there's a shootout right outside your window. So that's always going to help your fear of wanting to leave the house, police shootouts with a bad guy and stuff like that. And someone knocks on the door, and what do? You leave him out there? You let him in?
Sounds like when I
go have
him see. Act like nothing happened. He fell.
He fell on a whole bunch of bullets.
I didn't see nothing.
But she's like, I'm not letting you in. He's like, please, I'm hurting. I need you to let me in. She's like, no. He's like, yes. He's like, no. He's like, yes. And this goes on for about 45 minutes of this episode of her going, no.
24-minute episode.
I must have watched the director's cut.
And then when she starts explaining like why she can't let him in, and he's like, yeah, I'm bleeding out. You're not letting me in. Your reasons don't really mean exactly.
If only she'd watched It Follows, she would know not to let the person in. But no, she.
Well, I mean, as long as she's not having sexual intercourse with this, guy, I think she's okay.
I mean, it's like what his intentions are.
That's true.
Yeah. It's like maybe he's a slug. There's a thing on Twitter, if you could get paid $10 million, but a slug would have to chase you for the rest of your life, and if it caught up to you, it would kill you. It's that thing. It's a slug. I'm telling you.
Is that a thing?
Anyways, yeah, no, it's a.
Give me the $10 million. I'll just move to another country.
Yeah, but the slug never stops following you. Woo!
Make it across the water, slug.
It's got boats, sir. It's got boats. Have you not seen
slugs? They're pretty crafty.
And I just moved back.
Probably named Gary.
That's a snail, you dork. That's a snail.
No, the slug's name's Gary. It always does, goes meow, that type of thing.
No, that's
Gary's
a snail. It's a snail, not a slug.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Gary's a snail.
Yes, Gary is a snail.
If I say it's a slug, it's a slug.
Come on, Gary.
But she lets him in finally, because some reason she thinks that this person's fine, that she could save him. And
for what reason? To also, I mean, I think we find out in the end why she's partial to him, but like she's all like super paranoid, like no, and like he doesn't really say anything too super convincing. Yeah, and she's like, all right.
Well, that'll bring up something that I have questions about, or something I thought maybe a theory of her state at this point when he arrives. Anyways, the character is this cop who's played by Robert Redford, the very handsome, make women swoon in the 60s type of
Now here's the
individual.
question, Nick. Robert Redford or Charles Bronson?
Why are you asking me these questions, Triv? I mean,
Redford
these
got his
are
shirt on,
difficult.
so he's already one
Because
behind.
our viewing public wants to know.
Charles Bronson took
Triv.
his shirt off. I mean,
Yeah, and he wasn't
But
Western.
does Robert Redford need to take his shirt off to be sexy?
might not.
I mean, Triv, why can't I have both? Why are you doing this to me?
I mean, you
Sometimes you
could.
don't want to see it all. You just, you want a little bit covered up, kind of
Just
like
want-
lingerie
Yeah, exactly.
or fatigues.
Shit. But anyways, yeah.
Nick
Robert
wants
Redford
to be
plays-
a Bronson Redford sandwich.
Not before you, Triv. Not before you.
That couldn't possibly. You first.
Anyways, this is a cop played by Robert Redford called Harold, and she basically has she saves him, or in essence saves him, but she doesn't have a phone, and she doesn't have any way of calling the doctor, even though he's asking for a doctor, and then he passes out, and that's when we get the Rod Serling is staring at the mirror very intently into the void of the Twilight Zone, and once again, mirrors have a very real purpose in this series, which plays into full effect in this episode.
Mhm.
But Jacob, you
Yeah.
know we have something to do right now, don't we?
I do. We're gonna do.
We
it
have
at
to
the beginning,
fight the
so-
porpoise?
Fight the poipus. Here's the poipus. An old woman living in a nightmare. An old woman who has fought 1,000 battles with death and always won. Now she's faced with a grim decision, whether or not to open a door. And in some strange and frightening way, she knows that this seemingly ordinary door leads to the Twilight Zone.
I love the play on words: grim, death, old woman, living
Seemingly.
nightmare, seemingly frightening, the Twilight Zone.
The-
It's good stuff.
Faced
With
weather.
no, but I like the use of play words of like grim and death. It really plays into foreshadowing for an episode. Kind of love it. Yeah, Twilight Zone. But it's an episode that very much is specified in the opening narration. This woman has been living in this shanty of a place for many, many years. She's about to be evicted. She doesn't want to leave, or she refuses to leave, like those people do that refuse to sign over a lease so that they can build a freeway. And
They paved paradise and put up a parking lot.
exactly.
Like the people in Detroit, and they're trying to build Delta City, came in and just wrecked their homes. They had to
Exactly.
enlist the help of a robotic police officer, a jetpack,
The jetpack.
jetpack, and a machine gun on his arm, driving
Woo-hoo.
around in a '92 Ford Taurus.
Because that's what you do in the future.
Yep.
We're trying to make Delta City here.
Exactly. Right here in
Be
Delta
like,
City.
I'd
That's
buy that
capital
for a
T,
dollar.
and that rhymes with P, and that stands for pool.
Yep,
You
Oh,
sure
we
it's not
got
Mega
trouble.
City 1? They're trying
Right
to build
here in
Mega City
Delta
1 with
City.
Peachtree.
Mega City 1. Oh no, they wouldn't. Those officers would not ask. They'd just come in and say, "You've been judged. I am the law."
Oh, yeah,
I don't know if you just. I think they'd be. I think they would make an exception if Rod Schneider was in there somewhere.
Oh God.
Taken back to prison for
Oof.
violating food truck code something. I don't know, whatever he did.
Did you see
Another
that,
movie I was so
that both
disappointed.
that both Rob Schneider and Sly Stallone were in that one, and then also in Demolition Man.
Demolition Man.
So
Yep.
it could be like technically like two parts of the same universe.
It absolutely is. Watched Demolition Man the other day. I love it.
Oh, it's a great movie.
I think everybody. Yeah, I think. Yeah, you have yourself some 3 seashells.
Oh hell yeah.
Now, what would be
Everything's
the third
toxic
in the
hell.
trilogy of the? Right. What would be the third in the trilogy of the Rob Schneider, Sylvester Stallone movie?
A movie
franchise?
that involves finding the decayed corpse of Sylvester Stallone at a thrift store.
Tank Girl 2. I don't know where they fit in there, but that's just
Stop or my cousin will shoot.
God.
no. It has to have that dystopian future.
I don't know. Stop or my grandma will shoot. It was kind of dystopian.
Stop or my mom will shoot.
Oh, was it? Oh, shoot. Sorry.
Great story behind that. You guys should look it up about Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh yeah, with him and
Pulled him into
Schwarzenegger,
seeing it, or pulled him into playing the part. One of the worst
Nice.
Yeah.
fucking movies ever.
Yeah, not great.
So this episode main focuses on the two having a conversation about That's basically what it's about. It's an episode about this woman's fears about death, about her life, about the idea that she used to be happy. Now she's in fear of everything, including little slugs that are coming after her. And Robert Redford's character, Harold, basically, they talk about like, is this the right thing for you? Are you doing the right thing? And I guess I got to ask you through this kind of episode, because it's not really, there's not much more else to it than that outside when the kind of Victor guy comes in. But I mean, what do you guys think about the contractor? But what do you guys think about this whole thing that she goes through, and kind of like how her fears, like, does it hit you in any way, or does it, like, what do you think about what she starts talking about? Because it's like I said, there's a lot of just her talking about her fears, I guess.
Go ahead, Jake.
Oh, I gotta go first.
Go ahead. Unless you want me to.
No, I'll go. I know I haven't talked much this episode. Well, that would be because so I like what this episode had to say, and I relate with some of it, and I think that it had I'm not gonna say a good message, but it had a good message. But I thought it was a good idea, and I didn't think it was a terrible episode. But I'm not gonna lie, like the first like 2/3 of it were just kind of drawn out for me. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it, but you guys have been talking like top 10s and top 20s, and I've been like, really? Okay.
Well, no, when you get quiet, Jacob, I kind of figured as much. I knew where this was heading, because usually like the ones you really love to talk about, you will go on like 20 minutes of talking about it, which is perfectly fine. But
now
the ones you
that's
don't really
my two coworkers. When they really like something, they both gab the your fucking ear off.
Yeah,
you mean when I talk about Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning?
I can tell you guys are really feeling it, and I was just like, No, I didn't. I like the basic overall idea or story or whatever, the synopsis of the whole thing. I like how it's about this woman who is essentially having this crisis of or just worried about death, scared about. I think every single person on Earth has been afraid of death at some point. We've all had those thoughts and had to sit there and work that out in our own way. I will say that when I'm however old, my parents are also in their 80s, so they're the unfortunate truth is that they're not that far from it within the grand scheme of things, unfortunately. But I'd like to think when I'm this lady's age, I imagine she's in her 80s or more, I'm not that terrified of it. The saddest part of all is what her being this terrified of death at this point in her life means that she has missed out on something. She's missed out on life.
Yeah.
Like I kind of get the feeling at first that this has just been like the past little bit that she's been held up here. But I think she's been held up this way, fearing death her whole life. So she's missed out on life, and all she's had is this fear of death. So that's like really kind of depressing that this person has not been able to, she's held on to this thing so much that she's not even been able to experience it.
Well, is it really depressing? Like, I mean, it's depressing the fact that, I mean, we're a lot of people can be like this.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, no, I mean, I should rephrase that. Yes, it's depressing, but like there are legit people like this, and you got to wonder if it's like a psychosis problem, or maybe like somebody in their family died and it made them fear their life. It just, that's kind of where I come from. With this, it's just, like I said earlier, when I was like 20 years old, and I was just like, God damn, my fucking parents are not going to be here forever. I'm very close to them. And it's just like,
sure,
you sit there and start wondering, like, fuck, do I sit at home and, possibly die like the guy did in fucking, was it Creep Show with the bugs and stuff like that? He's the hypochondriac, or do I live my life? And it's one of those things you start realizing that, you start getting to an age where it's just like, Jesus Christ, not everybody I know is going to be dead.
There's a bunch of things to unpack there. Like with my parents, I know like they are, like I said, they're both in their 80s. They've both had very full lives. Everybody has regrets. Even people say no regrets. Yeah, you do. There's something you regret, but the key is to not get caught up on that stuff. But my parents have both had very full lives. So whenever they unfortunately do go. I don't want them to, and I don't think either of them are sitting there saying, "Hell yeah, ready for it, let's go." And but I mean, I understand it's going to happen, and I think that they've, like I said, they had a lot of experiences in a full life. Me myself, I'm not ready to die, but I've come to terms with the fact that it's going to happen eventually. And I guess
Oh, yeah.
I view that differently than a lot of people. Not view. I think a lot of people probably would agree with what I'm about to say, but I think maybe I just came to terms with it better than a lot of, or some people. Was that I understand I'm going to die, and it did bother me when I was like really young. That shit really twisted me all up. It doesn't bother me as much now. I don't want to. I'm not looking forward to it, and I wouldn't even say that I'm ready to die, but I'm not so much like afraid of it. So I
Well,
guess I have.
that's kind of. I was gonna say that's kind of why I brought up that whole accident situation. Is you look at that situation, you look at like how that person died, and you realize like if you don't start living your life, you start doing things that will make you appreciate what your life is. You could be that person who looks like they were like in their 30s or maybe 20s, and it's just like it could happen at any moment. So why do you want to live in fear? It's like,
Yeah, don't waste it.
Yeah, exactly. And
You are
it's
not
just
guaranteed to be here.
No,
You're not guaranteed old age.
no.
I hope we
Yeah.
all get there, but you never know. I mean, you hear about people like we usually hear about famous people, but like such and such died of a heart attack yesterday, and they're like 50, and you're like, oh my god, that's less than 10 years away from me. That's
Yeah.
crazy. That's young
Yeah.
in my opinion. You know, so I mean, you could go anytime. So you need to. I'm not gonna say like live every day like it's your last and just go fucking crazy, but I mean, you gotta, do the thing. Don't wait to do the thing. Don't wait to live life. Because
Right.
you don't know
Yeah.
how much longer that is. Live
absolutely.
every day to its fullest and I've done that for quite a while. I'm not saying I am not the most interesting person in the world. I don't like running around doing crazy stuff every day, but I've done my fair share of stuff. If there's something that I want to do or strive for, I go do it, or I try to do it.
Do you think that's
So-
why Tom? Do you think that's why Tom Cruise does the crazy stunts that he does? He's like, I'm 60. Fuck it. I'm gonna jump a bike off the mountain. I'm gonna climb the Burj Khalifa. I'm gonna do everything impossible to do.
Probably makes me feel alive. I don't know, but
No doubt, no doubt.
But yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with, oh, well, don't waste your life worrying about death. That you need to experience your life. But I don't think that I'm not saying everybody's out there worrying about death all the time, but I think there are a lot of people that when they do sit down and think about it, they haven't 100% or at least somewhat come to terms with that fact. I think a lot of people just don't think about it.
No, I would agree with that. Well, and
And-
the way that death is seen too from different countries. Like here in the States, we kind of okay, you know what? We did the whole 3-day thing. Okay, go grieve in your corner. There are other places in the world where there's like, week-long celebrations to celebrate the life of the person that passed. That you go to I can't think of where it is. It was either in Indonesia or South America, or maybe it was Central America, but they have the corpses of their loved ones and they bring them up and they have dinner with them, or they even Day of the Dead.
Yeah.
They bring their relatives back into it. It's not a there and gone kind of a thing. They're still an active part of life, even if they're gone.
I also think that you said something earlier that's impactful. I think people say this is another thing. People don't really say the words, they don't think about it. None of us know what's on the other side there.
Right.
If there is another side, we don't know. I mean, people have all kinds of different religious beliefs and all this and that. Some believe you go somewhere, some believe things just end, some believe you become something. But nobody's been able to report on this, like the concrete evidence. Here it is. I mean, there's people that can say things, but I mean, we none of us do know.
No.
So, I mean, I think that freaks some people out. If some people are, like they said in this episode, as we get to the end, you're not afraid of death. You're afraid of the unknown.
Right.
And I get that
Yeah,
because it is an unknown. It's like, oh, everything ends but does it end? I don't know. Do you go here? Do you go there? Some people feel more comfortable in their beliefs. Me, myself, my personal beliefs, I'm not going to go there, but I will say that I think I'm not tooting my own horn, but I do think that I feel much more at home with my personal beliefs on that than a lot of people do. A lot of people I've met, because a lot of people question things and I don't. And that might be why I am more at peace with some of these things. Once again, not wanting it to happen anytime soon, but it doesn't. It's not like a big fear of mine. So then when I see something like this, I see people like this every day. That when they get down to it and start thinking about death and what happens, and I get it, they're just fearful, and they can get consumed by it, and they spend their life or a portion of their life just more afraid of dying, and they stop living. And at that point, I'm kind of like, you've already died because you're not living.
And I think too that it's just as much kind of that for because some people, or for a lot of people, that there's that need for routine, that need to know what's coming next. People mitigate any risk possible, which is understandable. I mean, you don't want to have a financial crisis come out of nowhere, or surgery, or whatever it might be. Absolutely unknown.
We as human beings, and we as human beings we don't like to not know.
Right.
Like anything, we want to know why on everything. Be that how something's made, where this comes from, or how it was all made. Yeah. What's the point to it all, and all that. We like to know these things, and when we're don't, curious, really freaks us the fuck out. And I will say that I'm not going into specifics, and not offensive, because I'm not going to go into specifics, but I do think that some people's beliefs, that is the core element that informs those beliefs, as a need to know.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes some people's belief systems is giving them away, at least in their heads. Well, it's their beliefs are own, to know something.
Right. Well, and the thing is, there are two sides to that, because that curiosity that's inherently human is fantastic. It's driven us all kinds of cool places, but
absolutely
that need to that need to be absolutely 100% rock solid that this is what comes next. There's no way. The world and everything beyond it is more gray than black and white,
because there's some shit we just don't know and never will.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of people have a hard time coming to terms with that.
Yeah.
Well, this is going to sound stupid, but you can look at like the Matrix, and you can look at the conversation that Neo has with the old woman, whatever her name is,
the Oracle.
Oracle. And the one thing that Neo says, and what I'm sure a lot of people believe, is the idea of like not having the ability to have what's that word called, free will, basically, like not having the ability to determine what happens in your life. Self-determination. Yeah, like the idea of like the unknown and not knowing when you're going to die. I think that freaks out a lot of people, and it freaked me out just for the simple fact that like there is a lot of stuff that you can control. There's a lot of stuff that you can put on the table to help yourself out. But the idea of dying, the idea of who you're born to, and who, all that stuff you can't control. And sometimes that freaks people out. Sometimes that puts old women in the basement, eventually being seen by Robert Redford. But is that unknown, as Jacob alluded to, that yeah, exactly.
I don't think before you mentioned that she had been like that her whole life, I don't think she was like that her whole life. I think it wasn't like a 6-month thing, but I don't think it was.
I think it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been probably, I would say the latter half or the latter third of her life is when that came into being. But I do think,
maybe when she had like a husband or something like that, and the husband died or something like that, it could have caused, I'm not saying that's what happened, but it could have something traumatic that caused it. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I do think though that, and you have that today too. It's a super easy thing. You have, every generation underneath you, like if you look at people of a certain age, we were born understanding computers to a certain extent, or we were young enough to be able to get it. There is that thing, everything has become so much online that, there is that sense of isolation that comes with that. But I think too, going back to the 60s, there was quite a lot of that too. You say you're born in the 1880s, and, you get up into the 1960s, and the world is so chaotic, and everything that is kind of, gone all topsy-turvy. I do think that plays into that kind of a similar message to what you would have to someone in their 80s today in a lot of ways.
Not to go on a tangent.
No, go for it.
But no, because we'll get off topic. But
well, we're already off topic.
To speak to what Nick touched on a minute ago, there's a movie, and I've referenced this movie on here before. It's not a good movie, but it has a good idea. And I cannot even remember the name of it. I reviewed it a while back. Nobody's seen it. James Gunn's brother's in it. It's the way I remember it. But anyway, it's about a society where everybody's immortal. They have
Oh yeah, I remember this movie.
they have a procedure they go through where they're immortal, but you have this subset of people that want to go back to being mortal. It's called Mortal. I think it's not called Mortal. That's not whatever. I Am Mortal, maybe. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Nobody's gonna watch this shit. But that's the idea is cool of if you're immortal. So in other words, you know you're not gonna die, but it is the same as knowing when you're gonna die. You know the future as far as your life expectancy and plan and all that goes. Their thing is they say, well, you lose all ambition to do anything, to be better, to try anything, to anything. There's no point to life at that point because there's no urgency to do anything. So nobody ever does anything. Everybody just kind of lives, but they're not really living. They're just kind of existing. And these people were like, no, you need to have that unknown. You need to be mortal and not know what tomorrow holds as far as your life goes to be able to actually live and push you to be better and do more. There needs to be a time limit on stuff. And I think that what Nick was saying a second ago, that kind of goes to it. Like if you do that, not knowing is kind of what pushes us. While yes, it can drive some old women to a basement like this in a decrepit house. It's also was kind of what both of you were going to. It's also what pushes us to be better and pushes us to strive for more and do something.
Well, I mean, you can look at I think it was the second season of Westworld, the recreation of Westworld, and there's the thing about that season that is revealed at the end, or actually maybe it's not revealed. Anyways, that the whole point of that second season was, what if a company gave you the ability or knew the ability of when you were going to die? How would that affect you? And I think it'd be interesting to see the adverse effects of if you did know you were going to, like what point you were going to die. Would that change anything? Would that change people? How would people react to that? And it does have an reverse effect on the season because of how it plays out. But maybe the unknown is the most important thing because it teaches you that you don't know. Like if you know when you're going to die, like let's say you're going to die tomorrow at noon or something like that, would it change how you do things, or would you just live in the bathroom or the living room hoping that would change? And that's what's happening in this episode. Kind of going back to the episode, the fact that she's living in this space because she's trying to avert death when she's doing everything in her power to not get hurt. She has all her windows boarded up. She has all this crap everywhere to protect her. And all she's doing is getting to a point where she's like, as we've discussed, she's not living her life. She's not willing to talk to anyone. Yeah. She's existing. That's all she's doing. And that's not that's the whole message of this episode is don't do that. Like, don't be that, because all you're doing is you're giving yourself nothing. You're regretting everything. And whether she regrets anything at the end is a different story, depending on how you guys feel about it. But the young guy, the guy that Robert Redford's playing, feels like a guy who was living his life, who is acting upon his world that he lives. And it's just an interesting thing to kind of put into a Twilight Zone episode because of the ideas of like what Rod Serling and the crew were doing for the series, which, when you look at it from the surface level, it's a show about sci-fi tropes and stuff like that. But when you look at it from a very deeper perspective, like this episode, you realize that it basically is all about human condition, about human ideology, about how we view the world in our fears and tropes and stuff like that. And that's why this series is so revolutionary and so important for the TV in its own right, because this kind of stuff in this show was not being done before this. And I think this is why shows like you could Westworld or any of these shows that deal with like the human psychology and stuff like that are even out today because of what Rod Serling and company were doing. And I think that's why I like this episode so much, is because it's not hitting you in the face, but it's doing it in a very personal, people go through this type of situation, I guess. I don't know.
You know what this is like? Like the tale about the guy this guy, like there's a story about the guy that stuffs his mattress with money and then he dies, and he doesn't. There's that balance of like taking your time and saving, but then also, enjoying life and not hoarding it away, and not doing
is that
anything
why
with
life
it.
insurance? I gotta ask you a question. Is that I don't know how you guys feel about this, but do you find it kind of odd and funny about life insurance? You put all this money away, and I know you're doing it for your family, but you put all this money away that you're never going to be able to use. It's more of like in case of whenever you die, it goes to your spouse or goes to wherever you need it to go. Have you guys ever thought about that with life insurance and stuff like that, about this type of thing where you're putting money into a thing you're never going to be able to access? That type of thing, kind of like putting the mattress money in the
Well, that's
mattress type
kind
of
of
thing.
that's kind of like insurance. Period. Is it's for a rainy day kind of thing.
Yup.
Yeah, but you're never using life insurance, though. Like
You
you're
can
never gonna
never.
be able to use it.
You might never get in a car accident.
I think it's kind of a selfless move to where you're doing it for your loved one.
That is true. That is true.
Well, no, I know that.
That
I'm
is
just saying,
for
like,
you, in a way.
I mean,
If
you could say the same thing about charity money. Like you give charity money to an organization, you
but
personally are
like,
never going to see anything off that.
well, no, but I think you're still doing. I don't know. It was always a weird thing to me, life insurance. I'm just thinking from my point of view.
No,
You guys
that's
could have a different point
no,
of
no,
view. It's
no.
just a very
You make a good point.
Well,
You
you
know,
give to
but-
charity for what reason? Like Tripp said, you give it because you want to do something good. You're more fortunate.
Tax
Yeah.
breaks,
And,
bitches.
well, I mean, yes, barring that, you do it. It makes you feel good. You feel as if you're doing your part. You're more fortunate at that point in time, so you're giving to. It's the same thing with life insurance. As
So it's like
well, that's
charity
how
for the
I
family.
look at it. So you're giving it to your family, so they're not burdened with your death. Like they're already going to be burdened with your death. I mean, if they like you, and this way, everything financially, because financial hardships can make everything more difficult. But this way,
Right.
financially, they're not burdened further, and they're taken care of when you're gone. So
Yeah.
at least if you're not there, you're still able to provide for them. I think that's the life
I
insurance.
mean, that's
Life
why you're
insurance
setting
is a
up a
fucking
farm,
scam
right?
a lot of the times, but
Yeah.
I mean, I will agree
Especially
with
how
you
much they
there.
charge and what you get. No joke. Like I pay like was it like $12 a week, and I still have like a $2,000 deductible. So it's fucking insane. Yeah,
Oh yeah, I
it's
was looking at
crazy.
a life
I
insurance
went.
policy the other day for a family member, and I was like, not to sound morbid, but if you're still alive in 6 years, this thing's not worth it. I mean, that's just the
Well,
facts. In 6 years, we would have paid what it's willing to pay out. So it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I guess you started a farm, right, Jacob? Because you knew if you die, at least they have chickens and cows and
no cows yet, just goats,
Goats.
goats
dogs,
and vegetables and
pigs,
dogs
soon.
Amy and Sonic.
Yes.
and Starlink. They're all set,
I don't have I have Starlink. I don't have it hooked up anymore. I got
Well, you know what I
normal
mean.
internet now.
If you die, you can do they can inherit Starlink from you. So,
Well, actually, one more real quick point on this, and I know,
Yeah.
like, just as far as the immortal versus mortal thing, I got thinking in this
a
episode,
Highlander?
kind of no, well, that too, but about escape clause and how the guy basically has eternal life, and he went out and did all the fun stuff, but the second that he got immortal, he just was like, I'm bored. This sucks. Make
Yeah.
it
Well, I
stop.
mean, you can look at anything, Triv. Like you can look at like the nice place to visit, like anything
Oh,
like
yeah,
that.
no,
Like if
100%.
you're given eternal life, or you're given everything you want, you never have to worry about anything. You start to get bored. Like I can't remember a movie I was watching, but there's a movie or a TV show, something I was watching about somebody wanted to die or pass on their living forever because they had seen everything, they watched everybody pass, and it was boring to them. Like they didn't want to do this anymore. And it's the same thing. Like people want to live forever, like this woman does. And it's just like, do you really want to live forever? Do you want to see 2020? Do you want to see
No, you don't.
2016? You don't want to see any of that. Like you live, there's a reason you live, at most 100 plus years, at most 110 years or whatever. And they're trying to do experiments in science on like living longer than that. I'm like, do you really want to live that long?
The
honestly?
contractor said he actually had something good to say when he knocked the old lady out accidentally, and he's talking to her. He was like, hey, it's you got to get out of here. And he's like, everything has its time, and then it's time to set it aside for the next thing. He said, even people said, it's not a bad thing. It's just, even people have their time, and it's time to, set a stop and say, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, right.
Well, and here's the thing, she wasn't Like, you know, the whole, I don't think that she wanted to live forever. I think it was just, I mean, and I
It's just
guess
a fear
it
of
was,
the unknown.
yeah, exactly. It was a fear of what was next.
Yeah, I mean that's
Well,
what it all boils down to is like she like Robert Redford said in the end, you're not afraid of death. You're afraid of you don't know. You're afraid of the unknown that's right over there behind that door. You don't know. That's what you're afraid of. And it's all about fear. That is one of the things I did like about this episode. I mean, I liked a lot of stuff about this episode, not as much as you guys. I thought it drug a little bit. I think what I disliked the most, and I say disliked, I didn't hate anything. What I disliked the most is I see what the episode was about, and I like the idea and the conundrum it sets up, and I like the questions it was asking. I just wish it had asked more. I wish it had gone a little bit further with that. I don't even specifically know how. I just wish it had not wasted, but maybe not spent so much time on her more or less saying the same thing, that she was afraid of death. We got that. We got 24 minutes here. We got that she's afraid of death and she's been running from it. Now I'm okay with the way they explained it, but they just kind of spent a lot of time with that. And it's not until like the last few minutes that they really get into the crux of what's going on, the whole story. They spend a lot of time with this woman cowering in fear, and then getting this guy in the house, and then he's over here, and then she finally tells him, well, I saw some people on a bus, and that was death, and I've been afraid. And then the contractor comes in and knocks her out. And it's just, I feel like a lot of stuff could have been expedited, and we could have gotten more stuff that could have asked more questions or delved deeper into these questions without being in your face.
Well, I got to ask you, Jacob, this is a serious question. Would the episode have been way better if the contractor had knocked her in the, the way she fell? Would that have made the episode better for you?
If there was like a
Wilhelm scream?
That would have been awesome.
Because she falls, she's like,
she's number
like,
one.
My heart.
Number one.
No, but like the bus stuff I find is interesting, because if you start seeing death at that point, whenever that was, like, how would your mindset, like, I don't know. It's an interesting concept of like her.
Well,
on
there's
a
a question there too.
Talking about that. Yeah.
Was she seeing death, or was she just telling herself that? Like, is this the first time she's actually seen death, and it just happened he was another person with another face? Or had she actually been seeing it? Never really confirms nor denies that. Had she actually been seeing death doing his thing and dressed in other people's bodies or whatever? Or was she just telling herself that because of her fear? Her fear was taking over, making her paranoid. And then, happened to be right.
Well, look at the, and I know we've had a lot of this since 2020, but look at the proliferation of psychics and all of these kind of things for people to understand more about the unknown, for people that have passed on. And regard, that's always been a thing. But I was reading somewhere that there was an uptick because, in 2020, a lot of people were quarantined in. It was a very scary time.
People didn't have shit to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they was Googling.
I mean, that's why baseball cards and YouTube channels became more popular, is because of that.
Oh,
but
no,
Triv,
absolutely.
I mean, the real question you got to ask yourself is, during COVID, how many people watch Pee-wee's Big Adventure and we're like, I need to do that too? Exactly.
I mean, I watch it yearly anyway, but
nice. But I mean, you look at like people that are found to be complete and utter fakes, like Sylvia Brown and some of these assholes. The way that they take advantage of these folks. But people, for whatever reason, if it's grief or desperation or whatever it is, they go looking for these. Yeah, they go on looking for these answers in places that, whether it's convincing oneself or whether it really is out there. I think that there probably are people that can do that, but the majority of them are bullshit, and they take advantage of these poor people that are grieving and suffering.
How many Oda Mae Browns do we need, Triv?
We need several.
I think all of it is that. Every bit, all people's beliefs and all the. It's just to meet that curiosity that we have, and it is that and it is a fear of the unknown, of just not knowing, because we are such a curious bunch that we got to know. So we look for anything that can make some sense of it, even though sometimes we don't. We get so caught up in it, we don't stop and say that don't really make sense.
Right. Or I mean, clearly look at this lady. She talked herself into the fact that stepping outside her door was detrimental to any kind of ability to, I mean, truly, I mean, she's like, oh, well, there was a guy that came to the door saying that, I needed to be evicted, but, that was bullshit, or whatever. I mean, all of that stuff, even though to a logical person to look at the surroundings, you can see that it's an old building and such. You know, you can look at that and go, oh, well, that's not a thing. How can that possibly be a thing? Screw you. Get out of my face. I'm going to mace your ass.
I think another thing about this episode that put me a little off was, like I said, I did like the story and the ideas and all that behind it. And I even like the quote unquote twist, but that was my problem. I knew his ass was that almost from the beginning.
Well,
like,
but I think that's
I felt I was pretty sure. I was like, yeah, he's dead, and in the end we're gonna find out.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I think the main thing about him being, as you know, we'll just say he's being death isn't really that supposed to be surprising. I think it's the idea of like, is she going to accept, and what happens to her? That's the twist. And even if it isn't, because it's not really a twist, to be fairly honest, it's more of like, is she willing to accept and move on? And is this personification? Because like, you know, because as you said earlier, you alluded to, she's like, I know your face from somewhere. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I've already figured out, not only is he death because it's the one person that she lets in, it looks like someone she knows. So it's like, unless you're an idiot, I mean, you can kind of see it coming from a mile away. So it's just like, I think the whole point of the story is not the fact that he's death. It's the point of, is she willing to accept the fact that she is at the end of her life? And, you know, is she willing to let this man come into her life and make her? Yeah. So it's just like, it'd be stupid if like, oh, we're going to throw this twist in there and it's, you know, oh, shocking, he's death. Like, you know, if any person in the 60s thought that was a twist, they're like, you haven't been watching the Twilight Zone. So at least I don't think you have.
Well,
I don't know.
Plus he was wearing all black. I mean,
yeah, and he was a cop.
Black and white. We don't know that. I mean,
that is true. He was wearing very, very, very dark blue.
He's wearing a white suit like Steve Martin, you know.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. As we talk about the episode more, I do admittedly, from my beginning thoughts, I appreciate the episode more now. As we've talked.
Well, if we had talked about Perchance to Dream, maybe you felt the same way.
No, probably not. I mean, I am up for it. If we say that our rating stands in the end, I'm up for that challenge. But no, nice. I do appreciate the episode a bit more, and I already did. I already appreciated it, and I knew all these things. But now, you know, we sat here and we've kind of dissected it a bit, and I do like it more. I'd say it's moved up or down depending on how you look at it in my mental rating, I suppose. I'm not trying to like change your mind on it. No, that happens a lot of the times as we talk about these things, that I'll gain a different appreciation or I'll lose some for something. But my opinion does change as we go on with these things sometimes, and that's good. But I do still stand by the things I said. I mean, I do think that it drug a little bit here or there, and it could have, I want to say just broad strokes, it could have been tightened up, but I think they just could have said more or asked more or delved more into the interesting questions a little bit without being, because I do like how the episode, and I think Triv, you're the one who said it, it's not slapping you in the face with a lot of this stuff. No. Maybe it was you, Nick. I don't remember. One of you guys said something about it, you know, not throwing it in your face. And I do like that it's not in your face until the very end. But it's, you know, a lot of it is a bit more subtle. I like that. So I would have liked them to have kept that, but I would have still liked there to be maybe some other stuff that, you know, it outright poses some of these questions instead of us posing these questions just based on what we see as we go down.
But don't you think that's good too, that it creates that conversation, especially if you think back in the 60s and there was a lot of that, like, not to say that death wasn't understood or talked about, but from the perspective of, you know, okay, if you're a good American household, you know, if it's a Christian household, you know, the thing that comes next is resurrection. Like that's the end all be all. You're gonna die and you're gonna go to heaven or you're gonna go to hell. Like this raises questions beyond that. The fact that it says that, you know, it's not strife, it's not judge, or it's not, I'm trying to think what the actual verbiage was. Crap, I had it marked.
Why do you think about
it's not scary, I mean, essentially the writing is basically saying, you know, it's not hell, it's not scary, you don't have to fear it.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, is Jacob does allude to a good point, is I think it's more about her getting her fears off her chest to kind of maybe relieve her a little bit. Maybe I'm with Jacob a little bit on this. Maybe you feel like Robert Redford's character could push back a little bit more on her fears and stuff like that. Maybe is that where you're leaning towards, Jacob? Like it almost feels like
his character's almost not needed. He doesn't until the
Yeah.
very end. He doesn't really say much. He comes in, she talks to him. He's there to be a vessel.
you
to
could
be
almost make
talked
the
to.
contractor the death character in a little
Yeah,
bit.
he
you know?
doesn't really interject much until the very end. He doesn't add
Yeah.
much to it. He's just kind of a vessel for her to speak to and say these things.
Yeah, and Trev,
to
you're
give
not
us
wrong
exposition
either, so.
to know where he's
Right.
at.
But
Yeah,
to some extent, would
she's
you
at.
say that like maybe she had to work, like with therapy, like ultimately the therapist, like when you're talking to them, they can interject things, but
Yeah,
ultimately
she had
it's
to
you
work
that
through it
has
herself.
to, right? She had to work through her own thing so she could actually let go.
Well, we also see in the end when he says, "Look over there," she looks and sees herself in the bed. I think dead. I'm assuming, and she looks like it
Yeah.
was a peaceful death. She's not like. I mean, it's like it looks like she like died in her
She's
sleep
actually
or
on the
something.
floor. She
So
died
part of
from
me
the guy
is
pushing her.
so that does make me wonder: it has this all been kind of a maybe there is a supernatural side to it? I don't know. Has this been kind of a dream? Has this been happening in her head, whether it's supernatural or not, or were these things actually transpiring, or was she asleep?
Well, that's what I was going to bring up. Like, as what I was talking about earlier, is the idea of like, is this her trying to reconcile with the fact that she's died? She knows it's like,
Or dying?
the people who are died who don't know they have died, they're in limbo or whatever. Maybe she's in limbo. Maybe she died at some point, like when the contractor moving out. Maybe she died years ago, and she's not been willing to accept. Maybe she's Bruce Willis in this, and
Probably when he Kool-Aid manned in that fucking door and knocked her ass across the room.
Right?
Wasn't what
yeah.
dream may come? Wasn't what dreams may come kind of in
I
that
don't wanna
realm
talk
with
about that.
Robert
That film
Williams?
depresses me.
No. What dreams may come?
It's been
That
forever
film's
since I've
about
seen
trying to
it.
find his wife who
Yeah,
was
they were
Oh,
dead.
they go
He
to
was
hell and heaven.
He
and
went
stuff.
to
Limbo or whatever.
hell to try and bring her back to heaven. Essentially, they don't call it that, but that's basically what he was
It's been so long since I've seen it. I just remember the journey.
They did.
That movie was that movie was beautiful to look at, but that movie's fucking depressing. Like that movie just made me cry myself going, why does my life even exist? No, but in all seriousness,
We love you, Nick.
Well, the real question, I guess, is the real question. So, if he's taking it all in, does that mean he's the bottom and she's the top, or is she the bottom because she's unloaded?
God damn it!
That's
I
it.
gotta-
I'm marking at
Well,
this one at number 82.
Is it your sister or your mother that's on the bottom?
Yeah, exactly.
Or whatever it was you
Jacob,
said that
you're
one
watching
time.
too
We
much
were all
porn,
like,
sir.
Oh God.
No, but in all seriousness, like I was gonna bring up that point, like because you brought it up as well, Jacob. Is like, is this basically her accepting that she's, because as we learn, she's being evicted. The contractor is like, look, I will help you move. Not everything lasts. And then she's trying to talk to Harold, and the guy's like,
crazy.
I'm gonna walk back. He's doing the Simpson Homer thing where she walks back into the hedges, or he walks.
Yeah.
Get out by 8. But then she realizes as Mirror is doing this that all she had to do is look in the mirror and see that there's no one there. And this is when we get very what I would call very attractive, very Deb on the air Rod Serling, Robert Redford, where he has a smile on his face, he has his hand hold out. He's like, it's not that bad. See, you gave me all the information. And she starts crying. She's like, I don't want to die. He's like, is it really that bad? And she's like, yes. You made me feel things, and I don't want to feel things. And
suck it up, Cupcake.
I did like how, and even though I foresaw it and I knew that's what he was probably about to say, I liked how when she like holding his hand, she's like, "Is it gonna hurt?" And he was like, "It's already happened. It's already begun," or whatever he said, and like the realization she has, and I thought that was. I like the end of this episode. Like I said, I just wish there were more questions. I feel like a lot of the rest of the episode was kind of filler. I know you need some of it to get there. I get that.
Right.
But I feel like they could have done something more with that. Just some of the conversation. I don't feel like there was much conversation. I feel like it was just this woman talking to this person, and he really didn't have much to add.
Well, he's dead. What can he really say?
Her walking. I mean, and Nick brings up a good point. It maybe and I could totally see this, her in her head as she's dying, working through it and making
Yeah.
sense of it
Because
all.
there's that claim that you see your life flash before your eyes, which means makes me wonder if I'm seeing my life flash before my eyes, which is really
Are you
depressing
dying right
because
now?
I know
I said
because
that
I
to me the
realized
other
all
day.
I did was a podcast. We're in the
That
Matrix.
was a damn good podcast.
Yeah, of 13 views.
If you see your
very good.
life
Oh,
flash
shush
before
your
your
face,
eyes
asshole.
when you die, when you get to the point of your
Hypothetically.
death in your flash, do you see your life again?
Oh, that's a good
Jacob,
question.
this is
Is it
the
just like
existential of all existential crises.
Life does not exist. It is just us seeing our life flash before our eyes repeatedly, inception like.
That's the afterlife.
Yeah.
That's the light we see.
Holy shit.
It's a
Mind blown.
Jacob, you know what it is? It's the fucking Dark Tower. We keep walking
Oh,
into the end.
God.
We walk up that tower.
Don't
And we
spoil it for
read
people.
the 20-year-old book. No, I won't spoil it.
20, that book's like 40 years old.
No, the Dark Tower.
By the
Oh,
way,
Dark
yeah,
Tower,
Darth
sorry,
Vader
guys,
is
like 20.
Luke's father.
Oh yeah,
What?
and
Haley
Bruce
Joel
Willis
Osment
is
is
dead
good.
in The Sixth
Yeah.
Sense, and
Yep.
yeah.
I mean, I can tell you from I'm
Nicolas
going
Cage
through.
meets the mechanical robots. I mean,
Yeah, there you go. I mean, I can tell you for myself, I've been going through some stuff, and it does turn into that thing where that's all you can think about, and like your focus becomes so much on that, it's hard to see beyond. So it's like it's easy to fall into that space and to pull yourself out of it, and
For sure.
it does take the right person, death or otherwise, to kind of get your like light a fire under your ass to move and to do something different and to not fear falling back into that shit. Because it's hard and it sucks. So
I guess
can-
it happened to me when I was like a young child. I remember it. And there was like a period of time that's all I could think about. And it really depressed me when I was like a very young child. I guess I'm just weird. And I had my existential crisis when I was like 8.
Well, there you go. That's a good way to do it.
And I
Get
worked
it out of
through
the
it
way.
then. I don't know. But yeah, I guess that most people don't, it doesn't hit that young or something.
well, I mean, Triv, I can promise you that from my point of view, that I'm certainly not death. I can't tell you about Jacob. I mean, he did come on like.
I'm
11
not
episodes
worried
later,
about you
so-
guys being death. I feel like he's probably show up here. So, although you are trying to take my
Jeff, though.
theater. Oh yeah, no doubt.
Death's sigh.
Oh God.
Fucking
Make it
Sauron
stop.
over here.
Make it stop.
I am in a vortex of white and black swirls, so I mean, I don't know. What to,
I'm in a
but
2x2 computer room.
2 by 2.
But you have a nice computer.
I can't use it.
Roscoe, you
It's
staring back
facing
here.
the wrong direction.
Dude, it's Adele.
It's a freaking potato.
I mean, as long as you have your cup of Uranus, I mean, that's all that matters. So,
Yeah, I guess.
but with that said, as they leave, a sign gets put outside the window. Coming soon, the bar cheers. We just need to expand it. So,
What the hell?
Sometimes
'Cause it
you
did. It
wanna
looked like the
go
entrance to
where
Cheers.
Everybody
It did.
knows your name.
Wow,
Dun,
wow,
dun, dun,
wow,
dun.
and like when Woody or not Woody, whoever Ted Danson plays walks in, he's like, "Why is there an old woman just walking towards the snow? Like, what's going on
Norm!
With Brad Pitt.
Yeah,
here?"
exactly.
Right.
I mean, he would be at that
Uh,
point a modern day Robert Redford.
I mean, to be
Walking.
fair, they did start in Spy Games together, so I mean, it's very possible he
Is
could
that
be his
Joe
father
Black?
for all you know. Actually, that'd be
So
kinda
is his
funny.
name Harold Death? Mr. Harold Death?
Do you think they
No.
were on their way to watch the trailer for
Name was-
episode 1?
Harold Belden?
Harold Belden Death?
Oh, well, just a bit of trivia. Harold Belden, when I hovered over it, says death is frequently imagined as a personified force. In some mythologies, a character known as the Grim Reaper causes the victim's death by coming to collect the person's soul. Other beliefs hold. Never mind. I thought
You
it
know
was
what's
gonna say
funny?
something like maybe in the past he's been referred to as that name or something, but it doesn't
Oh, that'd
shit
be
about that.
hilarious.
Why did this pop up?
Because it's listening to us. No, you know what's funny about the idea of death is everybody thinks it's like this cloaked figure with like the scythe and stuff like that. But most of the time, like when you hear about like people's beliefs in death, it's usually someone you know, or it looks like a normal person. It's not actually a cloaked figure, which is always fascinating to me because it's like, you know, you get this like romanticized version of death, and then you get the Bible's version of death or whatever. It's just like I'd rather have the romanticized version because at least it would be like Robert Redford or Brad Pitt or something like that instead of whatever they conjured up in Scrooge.
Kind of funny that both of them played Death, and they are so similar in their
And what
looks. Is that what Brad Pitt's going to look like when he's Robert Redford's age?
Probably.
Damn, Brad.
I mean, Robert Redford is not bad looking for an 80, 90-year-old man or whatever he is.
I mean, Robert
you
Redford
never know.
look a little rough the past few years, like his South Park counterpart that they do for.
Okay. Look at like Jack Nicholson. I'd say if you get to be 80s, like anything in your 80s and beyond, you have the right to look however shabby you want.
He just looks like that because that's how he looks at Lakers games, Los Angeles Lakers games.
True.
Augusta, Georgia, Richmond County Sheriff's Office is seeking the public's help in searching for a missing man. Harold Belden, 24, is last seen Monday at 9:30 p.m. near Riverwalk in downtown. I don't know
So
what
it's Georgia
year.
man instead of Florida man.
Yeah, Georgia man.
Nice.
Finally, somebody other than Florida.
There's no connection that I see to Harold Belden and death.
Damn.
I was really hoping there would. That would have been like clever or something. I would have learned something. Like, in ancient literature, that he went by the name Harold Belden. Nope, it's just a fucking name somebody came up with.
Maybe rearrange the letters.
I was looking at
There's
that.
actually no trivia for this outside of Gladys
there's
Cooper
not,
was in 2 episodes.
There's not very much. Yeah. I mean, the one thing they said was
Robert Redford's in it.
Yeah. And the fact that she tried on several different accents to see what was going to work best for the character.
And she ultimately decided to go with old.
True.
I like how they have photos for Nothing in the Dark, and one of the pictures is like a 50-year-old Robert Redford. It's like, what? So, anyways,
and to answer the question, like I'm looking at
I had a question.
I'm looking at
what
the
happens
companion.
after death?
No, I'm looking at the companion, and it says because you guys were kind of talking about how Robert Redford, how is this episode sit among the most popular amongst them. And it just says, and I guess you could say this, like there's probably something like this on every single one, but it says, adding to the performances of Gladys Cooper, Robert Redford, and R.J. Armstrong, and you have what has proved to be one of Twilight Zone's most enduring classics.
I don't know. There's a lot of words in that chapter, so I kind of passed through it.
Oddly enough, this is an episode with very few cast members all in one single setting, and I usually love those.
I know. What's wrong? Are you afraid of dying? I mean, what's going on here?
That's probably what it is.
This hitting you?
You're afraid to
lying to
admit
myself.
your feelings to Robert Redford, aren't you?
That's what it is.
No, he
Too much
realizes we're
Redford.
like over. He realizes we're over halfway through this series, so he's like, "I guess I'm gonna go and somewhere and dream about perchance to dream in the good old days." And
Well, I feel good
man.
that it'll at least be below or above perchance to dream. I feel like I'll be able to convince you guys of that.
That's it. Number 85.
That's funny.
Yep. 85.
So, anyways, with that said, yeah, that's the end of the episode. She goes off to whatever yonder afterlife is presented her. Yeah, she's gonna go listen to Metallica and
It's a good place to be.
maybe a little thrash metal. I mean, she looks like kind of a thrash metal, screaming metal.
Absolutely.
Metal.
She's rocking Anthrax.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Megadeth.
She's that Lamb of God. Yeah.
And she's a little emo.
Absolutely.
Right. Bat metal. Yeah.
She got Christopher Lee as her best friend in his metal band.
Oh yeah, I forgot he had a metal band, didn't he?
Ah, the French.
The boobs. The sag.
She called herself the Soror
My
Groupies.
balls.
So yeah, that's the episode. I think for the most part we enjoyed it. Would you agree? Had some issues, as
Yeah.
Jacob alluded to. Thought about life. Thought about Cups of Uranus.
I
Maybe
do like
thought
these
about
episodes that get us to talking beyond the episode.
Oh yeah, very much.
They open up a dialect.
It opens up a can of dead worms.
Yep. Dead ass.
I don't know. I opened a can of live worms and they said no, Triv. I do not like it.
It opened up the discussion about whether Nick chooses his mother or his sister.
And with that said, this has gone weird places.
Yes, it has.
So yeah, so we'll leave it there. So that is season 3,
Yay.
episode 16, Nothing in the Dark. Jacob, close us out with narration.
Oh, yes, of course. There was an old woman who lived in a room and, like all of us, was frightened of the dark, but who discovered in a minute last fragment of her life that there was nothing in the dark that wasn't there when the lights were on. Object lesson for the more frightened amongst us, in or out of the Twilight Zone.
Actually, I meant to bring up Nothing in the Dark is an interesting name for this episode because of how we are scared of the dark, what's in the dark, what's
unknown.
after the dark.
Yep.
Yeah. So I thought that's an interesting title.
Deep. Very deep.
Now we gotta smoke some weed and take some LSD and sit around and think about it.
Whoa.
Dude. Whoa.
We could be like the Beatles in Dewey Hard the Walk Hard story. Or Dewey Cox Walk Hard story.
You don't
I
want one of
prefer
those,
a
do you?
yellow submarine.
Oh man. I gotta watch that movie again. That movie's so funny. It ruined all parodies after that.
Except for
Yeah.
Airplane.
Well, that was
Spaceballs.
before.
When did Yellow Submarine come out?
Oh, I thought we were talking about Walk Hard. The Dewey
Oh,
Cox story.
I thought you were talking. Sorry, I was on.
You
I
both
was on.
confused me. I was like, aren't we talking about Walk Hard? The Airplane came
That's
out
what I
before
thought.
that.
I
I
thought we
don't
were
think I've
talking
seen a
Yellow
parody
Submarine.
since
When she
Walk
said
Hard.
Yellow
that is done.
Submarine, I was like, oh man, just go along with it so you don't look like a dumbass. Yeah,
No,
Yellow
please.
Submarine. Duh, Nick. Jesus, get your
Oh shit. Was Yellow Submarine a parody?
No, I don't think
I've
so.
never seen it. Yeah, I said I've never
Neither.
seen it, so
I've never seen it.
I've seen Hard
I
Day's
think I've seen
Night,
bits
but
of it. I don't think I've never sat down and watched the whole thing. Also,
We
not
need to
the
do that.
biggest Beatles.
We'll talk
fan.
about it one day.
Yeah.
Wow,
Stop throwing-
that's
Wow.
he doesn't like this episode. He's not a Beatles fan. And what
I
else?
didn't say I'm
What
not.
else?
I like some of the Beatles stuff. I'm just not like those diehard Beatles. Like I like crazy. Like throwing my panties at the Beatles.
Why not?
I don't wear panties, but if I did,
You don't
I would
know.
throw them at the Beatles. I mean, you don't know. You don't know what's going on waist down right now. Hell, chest down. I could be wearing a midriff.
Hey, more power to you if you
could be
are.
Porky.
A
You could
fucking
be Porky Pig in it for all we know.
wearing a midriff and a fucking what are the things the elephant
French tickler.
that too, and like the elephant jockstrap things.
Hey, go
Oh,
for
no.
it, man.
So good
Oh,
times.
man.
No judgment.
None whatsoever. So, anyways, yeah. So that is Nothing in the Dark, an episode on the Twilight Zone. All right, guys, let's do it. Let's do the last segment, which is the closing narration, the Twilight Zone ranking list, the greatest ranking list that will definitely not scare us into never doing ranking lists again. But we all love ranking lists.
Yes.
We all love it.
Ooh,
Where do we want to put this?
85.
I was gonna say one. I was gonna say 184, but I mean, okay.
That doesn't work.
Um,
There's not that many
Sure
episodes.
You
That
don't know,
doesn't.
Triv. You don't know.
26.
I do know.
26.
Realistically, give me a starting point.
Time enough at last.
Okay, what number is that?
21.
Oh, I see it. 21. And
No,
that far back?
26.
20, well,
It's-
all right.
Time
Oh,
enough at
sorry.
last is 21.
Oh, no, sorry. I was thinking the wrong one.
I thought you were going for top 10. You said.
I would put it top 10, but I know respectively that we're not putting it in top 10. So
You never know.
I'm just
You gotta fight for it.
Oh, you're right. Tippa.
okay. Is this better than Shadow Play?
I really liked Shadow Play just for what it did.
Intergalactic Planetary.
Oh, Shadow Oh, I remember Shadow Play. I really like the visuals, the execution of Shadow Play. I did really like that. I liked Shadow Play more than this. I think this asks deeper questions. I'll give it that.
Yeah.
Is this better than 5 characters in search of an exit? Trash can episode.
I kind of. I don't know.
Okay, so 5 characters rides 100% solely on its ending. If it didn't have that banger of an ending, like if they had botched that ending a little bit more, if the ending had just been kind of like, oh, okay, I don't feel like that episode would have been as revered as it is. Yeah, it's 100% the ending. I won't say 100%. It's not 100% the ending like Third from the Sun is. That's 100% the. That's 200% the ending. I think 5 characters is entertaining and good because it keeps the mystery up the whole time, and you're just like, what's going on? Where are they going? So it is better in that respect. But the ending is what makes it. Like without that ending, if the ending had not been what it was, if they were, on Alien, if they were on another planet or something, they came out and that was the twist, it would have been like, oh, okay. But so I don't know.
It's
Admittedly,
better than Corn, the Corn episode.
the what?
It's a Good Life.
See, I would rather watch this than It's a Good Life, but I think I'm in the majority.
Which
Like
one is It's a Good Life?
that's where he sends people to the cornfield. Like,
Oh,
The children of the
that's
corn.
good, Billy. You did so good. Thank you for taking off my head and turning me into a Jack in the Box.
Once again, I think this one poses more interesting questions. It's a Good Life, though. I love how they ended that on such a downer note. And no, not a downer. I love how they ended it without explaining shit. There was no twist. There was no nothing. It was just, here you go, guys. Here's a peek into this world. Moving on. It didn't give you any resolution. It just ended. And he told you that in the ending narration, saying, there's no, you're not getting resolution because this world sucks.
I mean, we could talk about Nightmare as a Child compared to this.
I don't think it's better than because of the subject matter. I don't think you go above that. Nightmare as a Child has a certain, and like this one, it raises a lot of good questions, but I don't think it goes above that personally.
Is it je ne sais quoi, as you could say?
I suppose.
Well, actually,
Je
let
ne
me ask
sais
you
or
this: Is
quoi
this
about Nightmare as a
episode?
Child?
Is this episode better? Is this episode better than Nick of Time, the quarter William Shatner episode? Like I guess we're looking between 13 and 15.
Right.
somewhere around
Okay,
there.
so where I'm having problems here is that you asked me, is it better than that episode? And I'm like, no, I enjoyed that one because I think I enjoyed that episode as a whole more. But that goes back to my issues with this episode. I liked where this episode went. I liked what its overall thing was. I just had some issues with the execution early on.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it drug and then it picked up there at the end. I think this one is very dependent on not necessarily the very end, but the last third.
Right.
The last third of this episode is really all you need. I mean, I know obviously you got to have a little bit of the exposition and build up, but I feel like there's a solid, I don't know, man, 10 or 15 minutes there that they could have tightened up, changed, and made just more interesting. Well, I think this is very interesting. It is still an entertainment medium. So I do.
Yeah.
I do demand to be, when watching something, I need to be entertained as well as informed.
I mean, I'm honestly looking down by like the silence, maybe above the silence or below the silence.
What was Once Upon a Time? I
Oh, I
forget.
see it.
That was your Buster Keaton episode.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Yeah. Damn it, Triv.
I can't remember everything.
And because damn, it's like had this one had a better first, I would say absolutely it's better than Silence. It's better than all these. It's better than Once Upon a Time. All that, but like those.
What
were
about
just
putting
more
it right
even
next
keeled.
to? What about because before when I mentioned one for the Angels, like this one and that one to me kind of have similar like.
But I
they're
like
both
this episode more
bittersweet.
in Time Enough at Last, though. I mean,
No,
you're
I
right. They are
understand.
bittersweet. I think if we were to switch it, I put One for the Angels in Time Enough at Last in the same, like, switch spots.
Right.
Because I do think One for the Angels is a better episode. I just think Time Enough at Last has that banger of an ending.
No, understood.
I would put this like above The Howling Man, just because like I think The Silence is a better episode, but I also think this episode has a better performance by Gladys Cooper and Robert Redford, or at least Gladys Cooper. I mean, I don't know.
Robert
I
Redford's
could go
great
with
in the
that.
last 2 minutes.
When
No,
he
I could-
flashes that smile.
I could certainly go below the Silence.
Below being 18 or 20.
Sorry, 20.
Yeah, so 21.
Yeah, I did. I found the Silence overall, which I can actually compare that one to this one quite a bit, because that's another one that more or less from the beginning I kind of guessed what was going on. Now I do, just to reiterate, I do kind of agree with Nick, or I could definitely see this side of it. I don't know if they were really trying to cover that up with this one as much, because I think it was okay for the Well, in their mind, when they were writing it, they were okay with the viewer knowing, hey, that's probably death, and kind of getting what's going on. It's more about the journey of her getting to this place of peace before she dies. So yeah, long story short, I wouldn't mind this being 20. I just thought the
So it would be
silence
20.
was more better structured, I thought.
Yeah, it's still a top 20 episode, so it's not like we're saying this is the worst episode ever. I just think I was looking
By
at
no means.
like the silence of
So by no means, I don't, like I said in the
Yeah.
beginning, I don't gush about this one as much as you guys do, and that's fine. But I just, I still think that it had some really interesting things to say. And I think that may be one of the things that not irritated, but what made the shortcomings, in my opinion, hit a little bit harder is that it had so many interesting things to say that when it didn't do them, I was like, yeah, you had opportunities there. Well, I wanted more because you guys opened up this this Pandora's box, and I want to hear more, and they didn't go there.
Yeah, I agree. Trev, do you agree? You
yeah,
concur?
I think so. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I mean, do you have any other oppositions or objections? If not, I'm gonna
Your
bang
hat
the gavel.
is silly, and you need to wear a different hat.
Got a
That's all
swordfish
you
on it.
Well,
You
good
say-
for your swordfish. That's
So
what
you're
she
saying you
said.
need more cowbell. He needs more
Yes.
cowbell.
Yes,
Everything needs more cowbell.
absolutely.
All right.
Fellas.
So yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that'll do it. I think that's a good place. Top 20 episodes. So new number 20, Nothing in the Dark. Number 1, So I the Beholder. Number 81, Trouble in Templeton. Next episode is called season 3, episode 17, One More Pallbearer. Rod Serling says this episode's great. We'll see. I'll believe it when I see it. Directed by Lamont Johnson, written by Rod Serling. Stars Joseph Wiseman, Gage Clark, Catherine Squire, Trevor Barnett. I don't know anything about this episode, but I'm sure it's fantastic, and we will not have any argumental discussions about it as we do. So
Oh, I bet there's a pallbearer in it.
I bet
There's
one
one
of them,
more pallbearer.
too. Yeah.
One more than there were.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Actually, this is Lamont Johnson's second episode in a row. Oh my god.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
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 Meow.
Right meow.
Oh man. Anyways, with that said, we're gonna head out. We're going to go into the dark for the time being until next week. Triv, Jacob, hope you're not the personification of death, because I need to live to at least the end of this podcast series of 156 episodes. So keep me alive, people. Keep me alive till then. It's infrared. He's looking. That's how he
Found the
finds
CG.
death. So those glasses, your death finder. That's how you fight death. And it follow. Or
Yeah, it's like in
They
that movie
Live.
13 Ghosts. I can like.
Oh, that's such a great movie.
He's like, yeah, it's like that
Matthew
movie
Miller.
where they fought like
Tony Schwab.
interstellar demons
Wow.
or something like that. You know, the movie 13 Ghosts. Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
All right. So Jacob, you have content. Hopefully we'll have a video post soon. I don't want you to promote that video because you said you aren't sure if it's going to be available just yet. But yeah, where's your content?
It will be. I said this 2 episodes ago, but it will be by the time this episode. I'm actually thinking that by the time this episode airs, it will have either just come out or it'll be coming out that week. If not, I'm very depressed. If I'm saying the same thing next episode, I'm a very sad boy. So yeah, check out my my channel that I'm currently using, Retro Jake XY, over on YouTube, where I do video game history, essay, documentary things, and I will have one coming up on the Nintendo 64, aka the Ultra 64, that will start with it'll be a 5-part series again before the full one comes out. Coming soon. Check that out.
Coming soon at KB Toys near you.
Woohoo.
EB Games.
EB Games.
Babbage's.
GameSpot. Triv, you have content. You have bloody content. You have YouTube channels. You have a theater that one day I will own.
Nope.
And you'll give it to me.
Nope.
Because you are scared of death, so you will give me your theater.
Am
Hostile
I?
Takeover.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, right. Yeah. It's your life insurance policy to give me the theater before you die.
Are you saying I'm dying? Because that's a little
I don't
scary
know.
at this moment in time. I mean,
You don't know what I believe, Trip. No, I'm just kidding. In all honesty, you
Jesus.
have content that's really good. You have a theater.
I don't know if it's really
you
good.
have sometimes I think
but-
you have popcorn in that theater. I don't know, it depends. Where's
Oh,
that
there's
at?
always popcorn. So you can find me here on YouTube at Trivial Theater. Most recent thing was Future War, which is a weird little movie about exploding dinosaurs and ninjas and way too much plaid and cardboard. It's a collab I did, and it's a pretty cute little movie. Coming up next, I'm doing a thing with Nick, Meet the Feebles. So hopefully by the time this drops, I will have that out, or it will be dropping shortly after that. So keep your eyes out.
I'm still waiting for it. Trip Keys promised me this video that I'm
Yep.
supposedly in.
Yep.
It hasn't happened yet. So
Yep.
yes, Jacob. Yes, Jacob.
Yep.
I'll say it after we are off the air.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so
I got a question.
yeah, so the stuff you'll never know about. Anyways, with that said, with that said, I'm at Movie Emporium. I'm on Twitters and the Facebooks and on Blue Sky and whatever the Tumblr or not Tumblr, Instagram
Threads.
thing is now. Threads, which I just found out about today as this recording. I also just finished up, we can clap, or if you feel like clapping, I just finished up the Mission Impossible retrospective.
Dum dum
Yeah.
dum da 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 da.
That's actually what that music's what happens when you find that music's that music's what that music's what
Fred Durst, get in on this. I don't know anything.
but that music's what's happened when you find out you have the clap. You find out Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise is going to try and save you from the clap. Anyways,
Anybody can save us from
like
the
I said,
clap, it's Tom Cruise.
Yep.
but I have the retrospective for Mission Impossible and Jurassic Park, and of course Indiana Jones, which Jacob was on, of course. But yeah, so there you go, other videos as well. So, but for
He's
myself,
gonna do the Fast
Jacob
and the
Tripp,
Furious next.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, right. I'm gonna shoot myself in the process. But with that said, we're gonna head out, and for myself, Jacob and Triv, we'll see you guys next time in the Twilight Zone. Peace out, motherfucker.
And just getting it in there all the way, like pushing it down hard enough so it's in there good.
Oh yeah, I know that was a problem sometimes.
You get a hammer and
Get that in there sometimes. Just
Yeah.
push it all the way in.
Yep,
You
exactly.
screw it in there.
So,
You screw it in
PCB
there.
deep.
Tight.